Welcome to Dubs Talk. I'm Dalton Johnson, joined as always by our Warriors insider, Monte, Poole. And Warriors fans, remember that Dubs Talk is presented by Mancini Sleep World. At Mancini Sleep World, every mattress is backed by our Rest Easy promise of a 365-night comfort guarantee with the lowest prices and next-day delivery. Visit sleepworld.com. At Mancini Sleep World, they also have the tariff-free savings where you can get 40% off top brands like Beautyrest and Sealy. We have over 3,800 tariff-free mattresses available for free next-day delivery. Monty, I feel like I need a mattress right now because we are finally getting some Warriors news. I need to take a rest because it is coming in bing, bang, boom today, Sunday, the day before Warriors Media Day, just as training camp is opening. And it's news that we've all along talked about, that we've all along known, but now the commitments are becoming more official. But the contracts cannot be official. I'm talking about the fact that the Warriors are adding center Al Horford. They're bringing back Gary Payton II, and they're, I guess you could say, bringing back, in a sense, D'Anthony Melton as well, who he had a very small sample size with the Warriors last year. It was great. We know he tore his ACL, traded him to the Brooklyn Nets for his contract to bring in Dennis Schroeder. Excuse me there. But now it is becoming official without signing the contract yet. And that is why, because I should say, the Jonathan Kuminga situation has still not been cleared. Monty, what is your initial reaction to these moves happening? Which on top of that, actually, rookie second-round draft pick Will Richard will be part of a 15-man roster, looks like, as well, signing a 4-year contract with the first 2 years guaranteed, very similar to the contract that Trace Jackson Davis signed a few years ago. I just threw a lot at you, Monty. Give me your instant reaction. Wow.
Well, I mean, is it news? Kind of,
Right.
But not really, because we knew that these three guys, meaning Melton and Horford and GP2, we knew they've been in the waiting room for months. And the question was, when would it get done? When would they finally sign Kuminga so we could then proceed with giving these guys contracts and having them sign them? They've been basically holding pens in their hand since July. And so, then, you know what? They're still holding pens in their hand because until they sign Kuminga, they don't know what kind of money they will have. And so until that happens, you're still stuck with a situation where you can't complete your roster. We knew that Horford was already on course to become a Warrior.
Yes.
Agreement's been in place for a good while now. And we know, they're adding a veteran center, a stretch five, which is always in the middle of Steve Kerr's dreams, a stretch five. You don't have many of those, and he hasn't had that. They tried. They bring in. Why they bring in Quentin Post? Stretch five. 2 years ago, why they signed Dario Saric? Stretch five. They brought in Belly and Otto Porter Jr., who can play some. Both of those guys can play some five. Stretch fives. So they've been looking for a stretch five the whole time, and when they don't have one, they really miss it. Horford gives them that. And the good thing about Al Horford, even though he's 39 years old, is that he still plays really good defense within the team and on ball. He can still switch. So his fitness level is high. And so he's a very appealing player for this team, given what they need, what they like. And he's a low-maintenance guy, so he'll fit in with the veteran core. You got 4 leaders now on that team. You got Steph, Draymond, Jimmy, and Al. All 4 of those guys, man. You have a leadership council. You have that now. And when you look at Horford, there are only 2 guys in the whole NBA that have played more postseason minutes than Al Horford.
Wow.
2 guys in the whole league, LeBron James and Kevin Durant. In other words, Al Horford has more postseason experience than Draymond and Steph. That's why they love it, because the idea is, let's get Al Horford on board. Let's have him play 24 to 28 minutes a night. Let's have him skip back-to-backs. Unless maybe there's an occasional home back-to-back. Maybe he can play 20 and 20 or something like that. But for the most part, he won't play back-to-backs. He hasn't done back-to-backs in Boston for a couple of years. And then, give him some off nights. So I think with Al Horford, they're saying if we can get 65 to 70 games out of Al Horford, we're good, which means Dr. Celebrini will have to be on
the real MVP, Monty. The real MVP.
Yeah, because it won't just be when you have 4 guys of that age, all 35 and over. It's not just about not being injured. It's about maintenance and staying physically ready and capable. And so with Horford, it fits. His 3-point shot dropped off a little bit last year. He was in the mid to high 40s 2 years in a row, and then last year he dropped down to about 37%. So you want to think that if a guy's playing with Steph Curry, you get a little more room, get some cleaner looks maybe. So maybe you can get back to the high 30s, low 40s, which they would take that in a heartbeat. I don't really see a downside unless you say, well, yeah, he's 39 years old. But if he's not injured, I expect him to play 65 to 70 games and be in that 24 to 28 minute range per night, and then be ready for the postseason. That's what those 82 games this season are about, getting ready for the postseason. Because if they get to the postseason, they like what they have. If they get through the regular season, they like what they have. If they get to the postseason healthy, they will love what they have.
Yeah, Al Horford, he might make the Warriors more like the Olden State Warriors at 39 years old, as we talked about.
Yeah, you know
what I'm saying? But I think that of all the players, like Al Horford might have been one of the guys that the Warriors just had to go out and get. Like with the entire free agency market, this is someone who just feels like such a Warriors-y type of player, a Steve Kerr player for so long. And the first thing that I actually think about, Monty, is the fact that, yeah, he's a real great fit on court, but he helps fill that Kevon Looney leadership void. When you first walk into the locker room at Chase Center, it was weird last year, turning to the left and not seeing Klay Thompson's locker. And now when we walk in the first thing, you turn to the right, we're not going to see Kevon Looney's locker. And that's going to be weird. And you need someone like an Al Horford. And for so long, it's felt like center is a down position for the Warriors. We obviously talked about the size, the height discrepancies in the past with the Warriors. Al Horford, 6'9", 6'10". He's not a 7-footer, but I like this trio now of centers with Al Horford, with Quentin Post, another floor spacing center who is 7 feet, and then Trace Jackson Davis, more of your rim running type of center, more of your shot blocker, a blocking center. And really, this helps Draymond Green. Get him less and less minutes, fewer minutes of Draymond Green playing center, the better, especially for the postseason run. And really, Monty, they've never had a center quite like Al Horford. Yeah, Quentin Post was a revelation last year where he made 73 3-pointers in 42 regular season games. That's one behind Dario Saric making 74 when he was with the Warriors, which, Monty, is the most by a center ever with in the Steph Curry era. Well, Al Horford, as you talked about, the way he can shoot it from 3-point distance, even at this age, he's made at least 100 3-pointers each of the last 3 seasons while shooting in that 3-year span a little over 40%. That is a huge get for the Steve Kerr offense.
No, it makes perfect sense. It really does. I think, and that's why they identified him really quickly. I mean, as soon as Al Horford said he might play another year, the Warriors were like, okay. The question was, would he play? Would he retire? Would he come back? And once that was resolved that he wanted to come back, and that he'd come back for the Warriors, they just put him on ice like he did with Gary Payton II and D'Anthony Melton. Said, okay, we'll get back to you on a contract once the Kuminga thing is satisfied. That conversation was had in July. It's now almost October. And they've gotten all the financials ready. Al Horford's been holding a pen in his hand for 2 months, 3 months, and waiting for a signature. He's going to have to hold that pen for a few more days until the Kuminga thing gets resolved. So good move for the Warriors, I think. Very sensible, logical move. Now, the question is, with D'Anthony Melton, the other guy that's coming back now, I've heard that he's working out, but they're not sure. From what I understand, he's not fully cleared for everything yet. He's only about 9.5 months removed, almost 10 months removed from his ACL surgery. So that was last December. And I think the 10-month anniversary is next week. So he may not be ready. It doesn't sound like they expect him to be ready immediately. But if he is ready, when he is ready, if he can defend like he did before he got hurt last year and make the occasional three like he did before he got hurt last year, to me, you're starting two guard. I mean, you're starting two guard next to Steph.
He compliments Steph Curry so well. Like, he compliments him so well. Is D'Anthony Melton a 6'5", 6'6" type of player like Klay Thompson, big and strong? No, they're different players, different body sizes. But that length with that wingspan, he knows how to absolutely disrupt players on the ball. He's going to get deflections, getting passing lanes off the ball. Really, really smart player. And I actually go back always, Monte, to the last game that he played with the Warriors was Klay Thompson's return to Chase Center. Of course, a whole spotlight. They had the captain's hats on. It was all about Klay. Then it became all about Steph down the stretch, scoring the final 12 points of the game. But D'Anthony Melton, go back to that game, was huge in that comeback win for the Warriors. He was a plus 12 with 14 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal. And he had a sequence right before Steph went off where he dives for a loose ball, gets it. I think he gives it to Draymond, but he gives it up, runs the floor, and then nails a 3 at the top of the arc to make it a 4-point game. And you're like, that is the two-way ability that Steve Kerr just like drools at, thinking about a player next to Steph Curry. So yes, they have Brandon Podziemski as far as in that mix for the two guard. Of course, they have Buddy Hield, who's one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. But yeah, when D'Anthony Melton's healthy, which might not be the very beginning of the season, this is another move for the postseason as well. For the entirety of the year with D'Anthony Melton, that's the guy that you probably stick next to Steph Curry. I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Podziemski is the opening night or starting two guard just because maybe Melton's not fully there. But I think when it's all said and done and it's the most important nights and it's playoff time, you're going to see a Steph Curry and D'Anthony Melton backcourt.
Yeah, if I mean, nothing against Brandon Podziemski, but if he's the opening night starter at two guard, my question becomes, who's going to guard Luka?
Oh my! Yeah, you're right there. Yeah.
And so it's. Yeah. I mean, and I know Brandon has been talked about as a possible two guard next to Steph, but there'll be so many nights. I mean, when whoever plays next to Steph has to be able to guard guys like Luka, guard guys like Kyrie, guard guys like Shea, and it's like you can't put that on DP. You can't expect success. You just can't. And so, and that's why, again, if Melt is not ready to go when the season opens, again, I think it'd be surprising if he is. That could be that, we've discussed this before, maybe a little bit of rotation at the two guard spot and just going on matchups. Because, I mean, you don't want to put Draymond on Luka. No. You don't want to put Jimmy on Luka. And so who do you put on Luka? And even if he slimmed down, he's still 6'7".
Yeah.
And so, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I mean, I'm looking at the possible two guard opening night and wondering who's it going to be, because if Melton isn't ready, and I don't think he will be, then where do they go? Do they go with Buddy because he's bigger? Where do they go with that situation? So, so that part is, we knew that Melton was in the waiting room all this time, and now, he's been holding the pen all this time. He's still holding his pen, just like Al Horford is, and just like our good friend GP2.
Yeah, and GP2, at the beginning of going into the offseason, he looked like he might have possibly been on his way out. And it kind of brings me back to the 2022 championship offseason after that, where they kind of had to almost decide between two fan favorites, two great role players that are beloved by the franchise, with GP2 and Kevon Looney. And because the Portland Trailblazers gave GP2 that 3-year, I think it was $28 million contract that the Warriors weren't going to and really couldn't match, like, Gary had to take that offer. He had to go to Portland, no matter how bad he wanted to stay in the Bay. And he always wanted to remain a Warrior this offseason too. So you go back to 3 years ago, that opens the door for Kevon Looney to come back. Then fast forward to now, Kevon Looney gets a deal from the New Orleans Pelicans that the Warriors say, hey, thanks for your service. We're always going to love you. we're not going to give you a 2-year, $16 million contract like New Orleans is. So then maybe that kind of leaves open the door for GP2 to return. And even though Gary, I could see, again, his role continue to maybe lessen. I mean, his minutes per game last year were the lowest it's ever been with the Warriors. But I still think that he brings a lot of value to the Warriors. And it's another guy that the guys love him. Like, the players love him. Steph loves him. He wants to be in the Bay Area. He's loved in the community. And plus, he still is that guy when it's all said and done that Steve Kerr knows, even if it's for 2 minutes into the half, go get on ball. Go guard an SGA. Go guard a Kyrie, a John Morant, all those kind of guys. That's where you can have Gary Payton II still in your back pocket as a weapon.
Yeah, and the other thing is Gary is such a good compliment for Steph.
He knows how to play with him so well.
Yes. I mean, and that was pretty quickly deciphered. You saw that coming, during the championship year. It's like, okay, we can put those two together. And the Warriors have been saying that the entire time. Even when Gary left, they're like, we're going to miss him because we can put it out there with Steph and we know what we're getting. And so, and what do? They brought him back halfway through the season. He was in Portland. So he couldn't even play yet. But they said, no, come back. We miss you. But you look at, Gary could be a possible opening night starter at the 2 guard, just because,
interesting. Yeah.
If because he's your best perimeter defender. And, he had some good spots last year and some spots where he wasn't so good. Right. I think there were some nights when he looked healthy and other nights he didn't look totally healthy. But I still go back to that game when the Warriors played the Timberwolves at home at Chase Center. It was back-to-back games at Chase Center. And Anthony Edwards was killing them. He was killing them. And the game was tight. And the fourth quarter comes along, and Ed goes out at the start of the fourth quarter, and Gary goes out. When Ed gets up to come back in, Steve calls Gary. They enter at the same time.
Yeah.
They come back in the game at the same time, and Ed didn't hurt the Warriors the rest of the way. He didn't do anything. And Gary was, I'm sure he was told, Gary, just guard that guy. And so he did a great job that night, which tells you he has the ability to do it. In the playoffs, you saw it in hit and miss situations. It was some nights it was better, but he and Ant got a thing going on now. It's like this little jaw thing, they get in each other's face, and so it's good. But as we all know, there was the big shot that Ant hit at Chase with Gary and Draymond right there. And he's like, I don't care, y'all. This is the best y'all got. Watch me.
Cool. Ant-Man will talk too. He will talk.
And he hit the shot, right before halftime. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I think having Gary back for obvious reasons is that, again, he knows how well to play with Steph, and he gives him a perimeter defender. You want to make a few more threes, but he also, he's also a guy who plays out of his size. He's 6'2", 6'2.5", whatever he is. But when you look around the paint, he somehow is effective in the paint.
He's a power. He's the dollar spot. Power forward. He's a power forward offensively, a point guard defensively who could actually play up and play multiple positions defensively. He's one of the most unique players, if not the most unique for what he does for a certain team in the entire NBA. And I don't think there's another team or another coach that's better for Gary Payton II than the Warriors and Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr figured out to not put him in a box, not go, you're 6'2". You're a point guard, and go, no, just go be this weird athlete basketball player for me, please. And then you can mold into what works for us. So I think it's a good positive thing that Gary Payton II is back with the Warriors. And the reality is, Monte, as you brought up, it's going to be matchup based on so many different nights. The Warriors used 38 starting lineups last season. I don't think Steve Kerr wants to use that big of a number again. Like 38's a big number. That's nearly half the games you're using a different starting lineup. He's huge on, chemistry, cohesion, all of that. But yeah, there's going to be nights where D'Anthony Melton does start next to Steph, where Buddy does, where maybe Pods does, where GP2 does. And there's going to be nights where Steph needs a night off, and that might mean that Pods is starting and all these type of different things. So you're going to see different matchups, and Gary's huge for those certain matchups in a loaded Western Conference with a plethora of scary guards on the other side.
Yeah, so you talk about Melton, you talk about Horford and GP2. Again, they've been in the waiting room since July. They all knew they're going to come into the Warriors, and we still know that that has not changed. It's not news per se because they've been there the whole time. Now the news will really hit when they sign, and that won't happen until Mr. Kuminga settles. And so the Warriors really don't know how much they have to spend until they get the Kuminga contract set. And they definitely want to avoid the second apron, which they can possibly do if it's the right money with Kuminga. And if that's the case, they may have room for a guy like Seth Curry.
Yes.
And so Seth is in the waiting room wondering, okay, am I coming or not? And I still think there's a chance he can come to this team. It depends on how many they want to carry. But if you look at the Warriors, you look at the way the league is going and how many teams have 3 and 4 and 5 guys who can shoot the three ball, there is a place for him on this roster. I mean, he led the league in 3-point percentage last year. So, and he wouldn't be playing 25 minutes a night. But when you have a gunslinger coming off the bench like that, just to hit a few shots a game, that's what you get when you have guys like that, and even there are certain guys in this league that can really shoot the three, and a lot of them are specialists. And Steph is a specialist. And so he's going to give back some of his buckets on defense, but he can make shots. And they won't leave him alone. They will guard him, which spreads the floor. And so, there's still a possibility that Seth comes to the Warriors. It's not set yet. Whereas, Gary and Al Horford and DeAnthony are set, And so I think there's still a lane for Curry to get there. Which I'm sure the Warriors would like to see have happen, but we don't know that. Meanwhile, they did come to, like you said, Will Richard. And I think we could see coming in Summer League that Will Richard is the most ready of the guys they had coming in.
Oh, yeah.
He was a two-way player. Not a great shooter, but a good shooter. And so the question is whether or not Will Richard's contract, 2 years guaranteed, will affect Steph, and that's possible. We'll see what the money looks like again once the Kuminga thing is settled.
Yeah, I think Will Richard's a really interesting guy because you could have him learn too from a GP2, from a Anthony Melton, because he has that aggressiveness on the ball. I mean, and he's another guy, long wingspan. I think he's about 6'4", but he plays bigger than that. And his 3-point shot, it's not like he was shooting the 40s at Florida. But I like his shot. Like, he had a strong shot, quick release. He's not afraid to shoot it, as we saw in Summer League 2. And the thing with Will Richard, he's done it on the biggest stage. National champion at Florida. He was the best player in that game. Even he was more impactful than a Walter Clayton Jr. in that game. The reason that Florida was in that game in the first half was because of Will Richard. He got going early on, and then Walter Clayton helped out with the offense as the game went on later in the second half. So I think Will Richard is someone that they really liked, obviously, in the draft, getting him that late in the second round. So you're going to see him, it sounds like, on the 15-man roster. Then that leaves the second-round draft pick, also Alex Tui, most likely on a two-way. Jackson Rowe already occupies one of those two ways. Another guy who we've seen Steve Kerr use two-way players in the past. I think Jackson Rowe can help on nights. He's a guy who's in his later 20s. Another great story kind of guy, almost like a Juan Toscano Anderson, where, he was found at open tryout and worked his way up through the G League. He's only gotten better and better. And now it looks like there might be an open spot for that third two-way. It looks like Taron Armstrong is going to go back overseas. And so I'm interested to see if and when that third two-way contract does get occupied, because the one guy that I think we're not talking about, what's going on with Pat Spencer? Pat Spencer, that he can play a little bit, huh, Monty? Even in the playoffs, Pat Spencer was a dog out there. He was the one getting the faces with the Alperen Sengun out in Houston. So maybe that opens the door for a Pat Spencer return. This is me more speculation than anything else. Just kind of talking about, I wonder, that just the fact that Pat Spencer hasn't been signed this offseason, I was kind of surprised by that around the league.
Yeah. And I think that can still happen. Again, everything is dependent on what happens with JK. And as we sit here on a Sunday evening, JK is still not signed. And there is nothing to indicate that he will sign before training camp even. I mean, barring a last-minute situation change, he's not likely to be at media day, not expected to be there. No. So, and October 1st is Wednesday. So we'll see where it goes from there.
And offered that of mine.
Yeah. So one more thing, though, before we go. So this crazy, quiet, incomplete, inefficient, nothing burger of a summer for the Warriors. Does it hurt them or does it matter?
I think a little bit of both. And here's what I mean by that. I think that it created this environment, this narrative that just could have been avoided. That didn't need to happen. To me, these are the Warriors. And instead, we had so much talk. And again, maybe that's part of just the media narrative and the fact that there is so much media and that people want so much. And there's social media now and everybody has a podcast and all that, right? So it's so easy to talk about. But I think about a team that has this small window with superstars, future Hall of Famers, in Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler. And you're going, did you need to have this negativity surrounded around this team? And that's where I kind of go, well, what's going on? And you didn't need to have that. It felt, again, avoidable in my eyes, at least, to not have to go into training camp because, Monte, media day, I think we know what the biggest conversation topic's going to be. And does Steve Kerr really want to talk about that? If he's talking, does Steph Curry, Draymond Green, they got sick of the Jonathan Kuminga questions last season, and now we're having to do it from media day on. That's where I'm going. These guys are professionals. They understand the game. They understand the business. I don't think that they're going, what are we doing? Come on, JK, and calling him nonstop by any means. But I'm going, this had to be at least a little bit maybe annoying or frustrating for the environment that it created going into media day and training camp.
Yeah, I think it was an annoyance more than anything else. I don't think it was. I don't think there was a great deal of frustration because the guys all knew who was in the waiting room.
Exactly.
And that wasn't going to change. The question was whether or not they would trade Kuminga or not. If they traded Kuminga, then okay. Then still, the guys in the waiting room were pretty much there. So that's a separate thing. And so the only question is, how much money would they be able to have to give those guys? And until Kuminga signs or until Kuminga's resolved, they won't know. They won't know. So I think if they were a veteran, since they're a veteran team, I don't think it hurts them a lot. The young guys, they were pretty busy this summer, did their thing, whether it was Moses Moody or Kuminga or BP, Trace. Those guys all worked on stuff this summer. Quentin Post, they all worked on stuff this summer. So I think when you look at where they are and what they want to be, the veterans are like, we know the drill. Once camp starts, we'd like everyone to be there. And I think if nothing happens by Wednesday, then I think you may see some frustration. Because at that point, it's like, really, what are we doing here? I think it's unfair to be angry with JK. And I don't think any of those guys are. They're like, guys don't check other guys' pockets.
No.
So, if like JK wants a certain amount of money, they're like, you got to get your money. As Marshawn say, get your chicken. And so I don't think that anybody's mad at JK, but annoyance of the fact that they couldn't really get any momentum built, any traction going this summer toward going into training camp. The little mini camp they had addressed some of that, but we'll see what it means when it comes down to Tuesday's practice and beyond that, because again, the next 3 days are going to be very interesting. Wednesday. So
it just feels like, again, if we talk about a month or two ago, when we're talking about, hey, Al Horford's coming aboard, Anthony Melton's coming back, GP's back, all these guys, you're talking about a lot of positive things in a good, just again, like what we're talking about going into the Warriors, instead of having to just talk about the Jonathan Kuminga situation and it becoming a negative thing going into the day leading up to training camp, media day, all that. I just think that that's, again, more of the annoyance than anything else.
Yep.
It's good that it's a team of Steph Curry, Draymond, these guys that are like, it's the business part of it. We get it, and we want him to go out and get what he thinks he deserves. Simple as that, right? And we trust the brass. Like, this isn't our job. So I just think that it could have been such a different, from like a talking point off season, compared to what it almost had to be, because there was nothing else to talk about, Monty. Nothing else to talk about. So it is what it is, and here we are now, and we're finally getting the rush of news that we've expected this entire time.
Yeah, I mean, all this time, and the Warriors were the only team. You have to sign anybody, and they still haven't. And so 29 teams did something that we saw. Free agent, whatever. They added some veteran leadership, some veterans somehow. Made a trade or something. The Warriors did none of those things, and they still haven't. But again, the agreements that we knew were in place going into September, we're still in place going into October.
Yes.
And we'll see the next day or next 24, 48 hours where this thing goes.
Well, the Jonathan Kuminga situation continues to be up in the air. We finally had some news to talk about, Monty. So I'm happy that we had that before media day. There will be a lot more to talk about very, very soon. But for our Warriors fans, I want to remind you that we are sponsored by Mancini Sleep World, where every mattress is backed by our Rest Easy promise of a 365-night comfort guarantee with the lowest prices and next-day delivery. Visit sleepworld.com, where they have a tariff-free savings going on right now, where you can get 40% off top brands like Beauty Rest and Sealy. Mancini Sleep World has over 3,800 tariff-free mattresses available for free next-day delivery. I'm Dalton. That's Monty. This is Dubs Talk. We'll be talking to you guys, I'm sure, very, very soon.